Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October meeting of the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority Commission. I am Andrew Taherzadeh, Assistant Director of Marketing Communications at the EDA, and I'm your moderator for this meeting, which means I will have control over the audio functions of this call, and I will control the slides that will be used during the meeting. At this time, I would like to ask all those on the call to please mute their devices or microphones. Now, I would like to welcome members of the commission to the meeting. Chair Kathy Lang, Vice Chair James Quigley, Secretary Ron Johnson, Treasurer Stephen Partridge, and members Rocky Mitchell and Pallavi Sabu. FCEDA President and CEO Victor Hoskins and Executive Vice President Alex Imes are on the call, as are EDA Consul Mike Graff, several EDA staff members, consultants who represent the EDA in offices overseas and California, along with our marketing communications consultants. I would also like to welcome Fairfax County officials who have joined us for the meeting. Presenting from the FCEDA in the open session meeting tonight will be Chair Lang, President and CEO Victor Hoskins, Vice President of Operations Donna Hurwitz, and Vice President of Marketing Communications Anna Nissinen. This meeting is being recorded. Members of the FCEDA Commission who have questions will have the opportunity to ask questions as they normally would during meetings. If anyone from the public has any questions, please select the chat function at the bottom of the Zoom screen to ask a question, or email Cheryl Martelli at the FCEDA. Cheryl's email address will be posted in the chat box. We will not answer questions from the public during the meeting, but we will respond to all questions in writing afterward. So with that, I will ask Chair Lang to begin the agenda. Chair Lang. Oh, Chair, you're on mute.
I was paying attention for once to turn my mute off. Thank you, Andrew, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October meeting. We have an open session meeting planned for tonight, and then we'll go into closed session. In addition to regular agenda items, we will have a fireside chat with Secretary Karen Merrick, Virginia Secretary of Commerce and Trade. So let's get started. With that said, I believe we have 4 commissioners, and unless Commissioner Johnson or Commissioner Mitchell has joined, we will not have a quorum. So we're going to hold off on the approval of the minutes. So with that, let me turn it over to our Treasurer Partridge, to present the financial report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're 1 quarter in, and the budget's looking pretty buttoned down. It's about 21% expended. So nothing to report that looks out of the ordinary. A few items you probably saw on the agenda was one, operating expenses include a $100,000 sponsorship for the planning, development, implementation of the Connected DMV Quantum World Congress. So I'm sure you saw some of the emails going out about that. That's going to be a great event. We've got several of our faculty attending that to learn more about the developments in this field. This is an opportunity for the entire DMV to participate, because if you kind of follow this, this is sort of that next big thing that we, I think, across the whole region have an opportunity to participate in. And so I commend the commission and the staff to be involved with this, and hope everyone will be able to participate. But nothing else on the budget looks out of ordinary in the first quarter.
Very good. Thank you very much, Commissioner Partridge. So as you remember, in the fall of 2020, we began a series of guest speakers to provide the commission and staff with various perspectives about the economy. These thought leaders will help us provide strategic vision for the future. And I'm delighted to introduce Secretary Karen Merrick, Virginia Secretary of Commerce and Trade, as our guest speaker tonight. Secretary Merrick is an entrepreneur, board director, advisor, and executive with over 25 years experience launching new companies, reinventing companies, leading business improvement transformation, and overseeing change management. She co-founded and was instrumental in growing a Fairfax County, Virginia-based Web Methods, Inc. from a basement startup to a global company of 1,100 employees and $200 million in revenue. Most recently, Ms. Merrick was the founding CEO of the Virginia Ready Initiative, or Virginia Ready. Virginia Ready is a dynamic business-led partnership formed to respond to the economic hardships created by COVID-19 and now helping over 3,500 Virginians rapidly reskill for in-demand jobs. Welcome, Secretary Merrick. And with that, I have asked our Vice Chair, James Quigley, to conduct a fireside chat with some questions that we have prepared.
Hello, Secretary Merrick. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Can you see me, or do you even need to see me?
No, we can see you perfectly fine and hear you equally as well.
Oh, good.
Thanks for joining us. And I'll just say too, as someone who joined this board as being a founder of a tech company that got started in the local area too, Web Methods, when I moved here in 1999, was one of the stalwarts, the original OG of tech startups known in this area too, as well. That was not just federal contracting, which is obviously an important part of diversifying our economy. So congratulations on what was ultimately 2 exits there, going public, and then ultimately an exit to software AG. Your story is infamous and helped put us on the map for not just being federal contracting.
Thank you. It's a Virginia story.
It is, and it's a Fairfax story too, which we love hearing about. And as that, let's talk a little bit about. We'll pull you forward a little bit here. Our group has some experience. Matter of fact, one of our former vice chairs was Secretary of Trade and Commerce two secretaries ago. But talk to us a little bit about your current work as Secretary of Commerce and Trade. And the position has changed over the last 2 administrations a little bit too, really evolved to be in a very important, if not the most important, cabinet position in the governor's for the governor. Talk to us a little bit about your role, what you're responsible for, and how your unique experience in the private sector has helped you be successful in your role, Secretary.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And by the way, what a joy it is to be with you all tonight. Thanks for inviting me. Kathy and I have known each other for many years. And Steve Partridge and I work together with the Virginia Ready Initiative, and I'm a big fan of NOVA. Our community colleges are second to none. And I just admire the intellectual bandwidth and the board and the commissioners here. We have some of Northern Virginia's best and brightest companies. So it's a great honor to be here, and thank you. This is my first government job, and same with our governor. And so we're coming at this with very much a business mindset, because that's basically all we know. And his goal is to help Virginia grow. And we all know that Virginia needs to grow. We need to grow jobs. We need to grow businesses. We need to grow our population. And the governor has a goal of 400,000 more Virginians employed and 10,000 startups. And I'm happy to report that we have 95,000 more Virginians working today than we did on Inauguration Day. We're all working really hard. And our goal is to continue to help create this environment that will help businesses grow. And also an environment where our government is taking its strengths to the next level. We do monthly management reviews, for example. We've been able to cut the budget by nearly $2 billion because of just things that weren't being spent or not necessary. And so we're looking for efficiencies in our government, because ultimately government is a service business.
As Secretary of Trade and Commerce, talk to us a little bit about specifically what is your main goal to fill those jobs? Is it how do you parse out your day? What are your top 3 priorities?
Yes, well, that's a great question. And first, I'll step back and say that obviously economic development is the #1 goal of our governor. And the Secretary of Commerce and Trade is in a unique position because all of the agencies, there's 11 agencies that I oversee, 1,700 people, $2 billion budget. And these are agencies like the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, which is the tip of the arrow in Virginia, but also Virginia Housing, the Department of Housing and Community Development, the Office of Broadband, Virginia Energy. And I hope that you all just saw the new all of the above clean energy plan that we launched last week. We have organizations like the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation and the Tobacco Revitalization Commission, and so on, the Small Business Supplier Diversity. So all of these agencies contribute to our economic growth. But definitely for me, my goal is to help start, grow, and relocate businesses here in Virginia, and to create that ecosystem that includes sites, business-ready sites. It includes a workforce around those sites, and it includes accelerated, better organized systems to get those sites ready so that we can recruit more companies to Virginia.
Secretary Merrick, I guess we'd probably all agree that Virginia is sort of is it unto itself almost a melting pot of different economies, right? With Northern Virginia being extremely focused on technology and federal contracting, and other parts of Virginia focused on everything from agricultural to elements of manufacturing and shipbuilding. But there's clearly, one overarching issue that even pre-COVID and has been exacerbated through COVID, which was talent. And finding the right talent. As much as we'd like to get more people back to work, there's no one who'd like that more than in Northern Virginia. The problem we've had is that there's about 130,000 current open positions in the region, and our ability to get people into those positions. How do you look at the talent issue of, hey, we couldn't open more jobs. Our issue is getting qualified people into those positions in the region. How do you look at Northern Virginia with regard to talent? And what are your thoughts and recommendations and strategies for helping in this area?
Well, James, you're exactly right. We have a lot of strengths here in Northern Virginia. We have great diversity. That's one of our biggest strengths here. We have one of the best educated regions in the entire country, if not the world. We have great educational institutions. We have technology is in our DNA, right? With companies like cybersecurity companies in the early days of the internet, our company, Web Methods, and just a variety of other companies where we really have strong core competencies. But what we've been doing in the last 9 months in this new administration is we've been digging into the data. We're trying to better understand why is our labor force participation rate lower than it's ever been in history. Now, this is true across the country. We're having very low labor participation rates. Why is it that Virginia is slower to recover from COVID, much slower than North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia and Texas and Florida? And why is that? And we're also looking at this regionally, and Northern Virginia has been slower to recover than even some rural areas in Virginia. And the data also shows that Northern Virginia is losing more people than other regions in Virginia. And so we ask ourselves, well, why is that? We're digging into the data, and it's a little bit harder to find out why people leave, but we're looking at it from this perspective. We have anecdotal evidence. So in Northern Virginia, we have a high veteran population, and generally veterans retire a little bit earlier, and they can indeed have a whole second career after their retirement. So what we did is we wanted to retain more veterans here. And so we've lowered the taxes that veterans pay on their retirement benefits. We were one of the only of 13 states that didn't give veterans a break on their retirement. So we're moving that ball down the field over the next 5 years. We're going to have $40,000 break for veterans for their taxes. And so that we think that will help. But what are some of the other reasons why people are leaving Northern Virginia? We believe it's the cost of living, especially the cost of housing. And we also believe that it's the demographics. There's an older population in Northern Virginia, and when they stop working, they want to move out to a more affordable place to live. And some people want to live in a warmer place. And then also an issue throughout Virginia, but in Northern Virginia, is that our Virginia alumni from colleges, they might stay for a few years and then they leave. And so part of what we're doing is we have a variety of ways that we want to solve this. The first one is to better understand why people are leaving, and also to understand, particularly with veterans and Virginia alumni, what can we do to retain them or bring them back to Virginia? So that's part of the recruitment and just the whole population issue. But I also believe that there are people maybe mid-career who would want to change the work that they're doing. And so we need to work more closely with companies and educational institutions. And those educational institutions like the community college system, and I think Steve is really good at this, where we go in and we work more closely with businesses to develop curriculum based on the skills that those companies need. I also believe there's a role to fulfill for Northern Virginia businesses to take a look at what their hiring requirements are. Does everyone need that four-year degree? Can they be hired based on skills? And if so, are these credentials, are these skills that companies could step up to the plate and develop their own boot camps to help people bridge the skills gap and bridge it more quickly? And so there are apprenticeships and internships. I really believe that part of our talent solutions are going to require the help of businesses. And I think there's another way that businesses can help, because when we look at education, particularly skills-based education that doesn't necessarily require a four-year degree, those institutions, particularly community colleges, have a shortage of instructors. Businesses could be lending some of their professionals to help teach these courses. So those are a few ways that we're looking at how to solve for workforce.
Well, first of all, we couldn't agree more that obviously there's some other unique challenges that are taking place now with remote work, and how employers, including organizations like Amazon and Google, who are offering a lot more flexibility with location, how that's changing the landscape. But let's put that aside for just a second to talk about housing. Certainly has been an ongoing issue for us, and obviously every major metropolitan area has elements of that, especially some of the more classic technology markets like San Francisco, Boston, and in our area. You have a unique view into this, having the housing group underneath you, the Housing and Community Development Department and the State Housing Department. What are your ideas on as we look towards this generation, this Gen Z and the generations beyond it? We are definitely seeing, prior to COVID, wanted to live within 15 minutes of work, and yet where most of the jobs are, especially in our region, the housing prices are such that it makes it prohibitive. Certainly makes them think about where they'd want to live. How do you sort of think about housing as a solution for the talent problem we have, especially when it comes to this next round of workforce?
Exactly right, because the only way we're going to be able to grow is if we have more housing that's accessible, that's affordable, and where we can have more of a supply. And by the way, it's not just Northern Virginia that has a housing shortage. It's across the country, and it is acute here in Northern Virginia. And I remember our two sons are now 20 and almost 24. And I recall that the teachers in their school couldn't even live in Northern Virginia. They were coming in from West Virginia. They were coming in from far-flung places. And the people who work at the fire department and the police department, and it's a problem. And so we recently conducted a housing tour, a listening tour, and we had people from all over the state attending, developers who are key. We had community leaders. We listened, and we've decided that housing is going to be a very big part of the governor's day 2 agenda, his second year agenda, because housing is a problem that we really want to fix. And so what we're looking at is obviously accessible, affordable. We need to fix the supply demand problem. How do we do that? We need to help improve financing for housing for developers, individuals, and families. We need to expedite the inventory. Permitting is a big issue, especially in Northern Virginia, and things just take too long. We need to incent developers to come back here and build. And we also need to take a look at the bureaucracy and go hard at fixing that. Those are actually the governor's words. He said, we need to go hard at fixing the bureaucracy. And then also we need to look at what the subsidies are. Subsidies aren't necessarily bad, but we want to do them better. And so we're going to take a look and do an inventory of what the subsidies are and figure out how we can do them in a way that benefits more people and more families. And so again, there's the zoning and the land use, there's regulatory concerns, and then a big issue that you've already raised, which is workforce. We have a shortage of workers who build and who are electricians and who do the work to help build houses.
I love your comment as well on how this is going to require public-private partnership. I mean, even though many of us are from the private world on this call, we still represent an authority that's helping the county and the region raise tax revenue to support the infrastructure we need, and by focusing on the commercial world. I mean, that's our role. But as we start looking at getting companies involved, and I loved how you framed it up, getting companies to maybe reimagine what they need in these roles, and it's not where it was 10 years ago. I need the 4-year graduate from Georgetown is the sort of the joke here locally. How do you envision working with organizations to get them into this conversation as well? Because obviously they could do a lot to help.
Right, indeed. And well, two things come to mind. One is I want to recommend a news article on NPR about Pella Windows. So Pella, who's in Iowa, built housing for some of their employees. And it became competitive, you had to buy it, but there were interesting financing solutions. And this idea of companies getting more involved in housing is something that I think makes a lot of sense, because if you want to create a culture where people want to come and work at your business, this is a very big, important area and a barrier to hiring the right people. Now, I don't know of any big plans on our end, but I'm looking at it. I want to know in the world of incentives, how can we get more housing? But it is a lot of those other issues, permitting and zoning and all of those issues that we need to address.
We certainly agree too. 10, 15 years ago, when you were hired, let's even go back further, not to date you, but during, when WebMethods was hiring developers, I'm sure you were looking at those Clarkson and RPI grads who had a master's and computer science. And now with abstracted technology code, we can effectively have people who can use PowerPoint, at least create HTML pages, web pages, things like that. So the level of training curve necessary to enter the technology field that hurdle's lowered, but I don't know if companies have fully sort of jumped over that. I love how you referenced Stephen Partridge and Nova, their support of programs like Year Up, where they're trying to find kids on the fringe. Have you guys been looking at ways in which we can get people who are on the edge of the economy, maybe, would not normally have been thought of to enter the economy in some of these roles, and how we can get them into this part of the economy?
Absolutely, we are. And we did a lot of this at the Virginia Ready Initiative, and we will be doing this as an administration. We're looking at formerly incarcerated individuals, for example. We're looking at people all along the spectrum in terms of what they're capable of and leveraging that potential. And we're working with community organizations. I'll be with the United Way later this week. And it is those community organizations, like even churches, that can be a channel for recruiting people into credential training, for example, with the community college system. And we need all of those channels. We need to be activating those channels to bring more people in. And we definitely need partnerships like that, which is interesting because you'll look at the CHIPS Act. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. Our Senator Mark Warner was a champion and a leader. It's a Semiconductor CHIPS Act to bring money into the United States to reshore the manufacturing of semiconductors. And how you win those grants is you have to take a model, which is not unlike what we did for Amazon HQ2. It's a model where you have to bring in companies, educational institutions, and we brought in housing too, but we also brought in community organizations because we wanted the whole community to flourish. So it wasn't only about the company, it was about the whole community, and it was about the people in the community. And that's what we see with the CHIPS Act right now. And that's the model of the future, is everyone working together.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Amazon. Certainly, that was a team effort through the EDAs of the region, and clearly Victor was at the spearhead of that. But we all worked together as a region with the Secretary of Trade and Commerce to put together a package that we thought would convince Amazon to choose us. But what we liked that sort of brings this full circle is Amazon's investment, that if you're going to come to the region, what they were also going to be willing to bring, and you know, their investment into some of these key areas, especially education and upskilling, and some of the programs that Amazon's brought. Are there any thoughts as to, you know, how do we take ideas like what happened on Amazon, and they're supporting programs like the Cloud Credential Program, or the Amazon, I'm going to butcher it here, Stephen, but the Amazon intern or apprentice program or cloud program. Are you having conversations with organizations or the state level to think about how do we approach large companies, and when they do want to come, and think of it, not just try to get their jobs, but to try to get their investment to the region?
Right, exactly. And Amazon is an excellent example for a variety of reasons. So I'll just give 2 or 3. So one of them is the fact that they are working with Nova, I believe, and they are, what we need to have happen is have courses developed with specific skills in mind, but we don't stop there. We also need to have it. I'm a big believer that we as a state need to invest far more in career centers at our community colleges, because we're understaffed there, and students, especially a lot of the students are older students, or they might be changing their careers. They need to know how to navigate a career change or a new career. They need to know how to write a resume. They need to know how to do a job interview. And part of the reason I say that is because I put myself through college. I went to 1 year of community college, then 2 years at UCLA. Then I went to school year round, and I earned my degree in 3 years. And I worked at the Placement and Career Planning Center at UCLA. That's how I supported myself, 25 hours a week. And it was valuable. We had alumni coming in. We had alumni from graduate studies coming in who didn't know how to do the job search. It can be a full-time job. And so I believe that we need to invest more in our community colleges to not only work more closely with businesses on curriculum and on skills that are needed, but on how to get a job and how to get a good paying job, and even how to move up in your job. So I see that as you know, facilitating the hiring process as being something that's essential, because at all of our universities, not just our community colleges, the outcome we want is a job, not a degree, a job.
Right. No, that's well put. And I think the days of I've got to get a 4-year degree, we're sort of back at the, I don't know, a circle loop here for our country about thinking about apprenticeships and, you know, upskilling on site, putting your hand on the wheel next to someone else so you can learn how to do some of these key roles. I mean, you quoted, one statistic. We've certainly seen it and done the studies and participated in the studies ourselves, that the 2 areas that we're bringing in early employees that are the furthest away from the skills we need are San Francisco and DC. And obviously the big reason there, with the highest saturation of tech jobs, those 2 locations. A quick question, sort of, an existential question a little bit, that's probably, maybe it's rhetorical, but it's something obviously that keeps us up and our region and the county is, obviously Virginia is a Dillon rule state as opposed to a home rule state, which means that its localities and governing bodies can only take so much action to generate their own revenue. Our region obviously relied heavily on commercial real estate in order to, to pay our teachers and police officers and to take care of the needs of the county. with many of our companies in this region being very tech-minded, we're seeing that there's going to be a dramatic disruption to the growth of commercial real estate, even if we create more jobs. That we may not create more commercial real estate, at least to the density that we're used to. One, how do you think about that? Maybe at the at that large level, and I agree, this is not a Virginia problem. This is clearly a world problem. And then how does the state look at working with locations, especially ours, to think about some of these shortfalls that we may hit in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, these are really good questions. And yes, we spend a lot of time thinking about them because we're competing with other states. And we don't like to lose to other states who have better tax policies than we do. We also know that we want a diverse economy. And so we don't want to force or manipulate an economy based only on taxes. We want an economy that's growing organically. We want all businesses to flourish. We certainly want the commercial real estate business to flourish, but we want a fair tax policy as well. And this gets to a point that I really wanted to make tonight, which is how we work together, and you've mentioned it. I believe that the future of economic development, and it's certainly something we've started now, is to work together more closely and more specifically, not unlike we did with Amazon HQ2. But what we're doing now at the state level is we're forming capture teams across the cabinet and across agencies. And we're working also on a specific local level for specific sites. So we're forming these capture teams so everyone's at the table to accelerate the process. So we've got permitting, we've got utilities, we've got transportation for roads, we've got education, we've got the VEDP, who's got a variety of incentives to offer, as does agriculture has some, and even the Tobacco Revitalization Commission will pull them in when we need to. And so we're working very closely, and you'll see more of this, because right now it's a pilot project, because we want to work it out before we take it on the road. And we'll probably do a few more pilot projects in a regional way. We're going to work closely, more closely than we've ever worked before, in a more focused way and a more collaborative and integrated way, because that's what the states that are winning are doing. That's how Indiana just got over like $5 billion semiconductor deal, because they were working that tightly. That's how Ohio got the $20 billion, probably up to $100 billion Intel deal. You know, they've figured it out. They've figured out how to just work together more closely, but this is what makes sense. You need a capture team. You really need to be integrated and aligned early on, and chasing down those businesses and developing sites together. So that's what I see us doing together. And oh, by the way, the Department of Environmental Quality is also highly engaged and at the table.
That's great. I mean, just to go back to at least commercial real estate, I agree too. We have to look at this holistically, and certainly state does too. But you know, with such a high degree of revenue for the state, and certainly Fairfax County being so reliant on putting bodies into offices, and there will be, you know, a potential revenue shortfall. Do you see that how does the state sort of plan for that, to work with, you know, regions like us to go, hey, listen, we certainly are going to continue the great work of bringing companies in, and we have in the last, since COVID started, with Microsoft and some other great companies who've made huge investments into our area. But the amount of commercial real estate per person is probably going to come way down with this hybrid workforce, this hybrid working location. Do you, as in your position, are you thinking about that? And in our highly collaborative position that you talked about too, we may have a shortfall here.
Yes, and it depends on how you factor in data centers as well, because we have quite a few of those in Northern Virginia, and we're very proud of that. Again, for us to say we're proud of all of our businesses. Right. I don't have a specific policy proposal to share with you at this point. We're actually in the process of developing the legislative agenda, digging into the data, meeting with stakeholders, and forming that. And we will be announcing that in the not too distant future, and working really hard with you all
Well,
to-
anything we could do to help in that
Yes.
too, like we are all partners in this for sure, to continue to make the Commonwealth #1 place to do business. I hate to hog all the questions. I could certainly go forever here too, but I did want to open up the floor to some of our other commissioners who may have a question for the honorary secretary. So if any other commissioners would like to ask a question, I'll leave you the floor here for Commissioner Partridge.
Yes, thank you, James. Quick question, follow up to something you said about the governor's initiative. You guys have talked a lot about workforce and trying to align resources. And I know he's spoken recently about trying to sort of consolidate workforce a little more rationally in state agencies. Is there anything you can share more about that?
Yes, and oh my goodness, yes. So we're rethinking and overhauling workforce. We found and oh, by the way, Steve, when I arrived, I would look at everything that we're doing just in the 11 agencies that I have the great honor of serving. And I'd look at the map, and at first I said, show me what you're doing by Go Virginia region, because I just needed a framework. And there were just all of these dots all over the place, and it reminded me of popcorn. And I thought, why isn't this connected? What would become possible for Virginia if we connected these in a more focused and organized way, instead of all the little silos popping up with great ideas, but what would become possible? And so we've mapped out all of the workforce programs in the state of Virginia, and we're looking at ways to organize them. It's more organization than consolidation, and so that we can leverage the resources and get more bang for the buck.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
That is exciting to hear too. Obviously, it's always been very interesting from a regional and a state perspective to look at all the groups too, focused on innovation and investment or technology too, and how some of them weren't connected. And it's great to see how some of that consolidation has happened with VRIC, and we're excited to learn more about how you continue to consolidate and make sure everybody's rowing in the same direction here in the state. Other commissioners who may have a question, certainly our chairman.
Well, first I have a comment. First of all, I love how you are bringing so much of your business mindset into the way we're looking at the situation with respect for the government agencies that have been there for a long time. So understanding both are important. And this idea of tying work, companies, homes, and community together, and placemaking is a really important strategy for us. And you can see some of the placemaking areas such as Tyson's and Mosaic. And what I think we'd love to hear is, as you're looking outside the country, whether it's Pella or whoever it might be, come back and let us know who you're seeing out there so that we can also learn from them. Because we know that people want to work and live. They don't want to drive so much. They want to be a part of a community. So that would be one request I would have. And then the second one has to do with the requirements of federal contracting and some of the skill sets. And you know this, the skill sets that are required, which put a hamstring on the talent and the companies, because they have to require that. And I know we have a very smart two very smart senators that are probably working that issue, but particularly Senator Warner. Is there something we can do that you can think of that can help in that regard?
Thank you, Kathy. Both of those were really good comments. I just want to say from your first suggestion, every major company that wants to relocate here, particularly for manufacturing, which are great jobs, they want that quality of life. They want that little village. They want this place where the people that they recruit and retain, that they will have a quality of life. It's very, very important. And we're starting to look at sites in a whole new way and aggregating resources so that they support that. The second question is about, yes, I do not know who the leading organization is, because I've heard about a variety of organizations, Kathy, who are working on this issue. Yeah. But I say, let's accelerate it. Let's just put a fire under it, and we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Okay. We need to figure a strategy about that. That's critical, because the government's not getting what they need too. I mean, they're restricting
Exactly.
themselves from these requirements of a 4-year degree or whatever it might be. So I think it's a good topic for, especially since federal contracting is a huge part of our business here. So
It is.
For sure.
any other questions?
Other commissioners who'd like to comment or have a question for our secretary?
Come back again soon.
Yes. I would say too, obviously we're chomping at the bit to continue to do our part. Fairfax County, obviously being the largest municipality or county and region, and proudly even within the DMV, we've certainly are lifting past our weight here, and at the helm. Obviously, your partnership with Victor is so critical to us. So we love the idea of working hand in glove, whether it's on a particular deal, but also on strategy. Anything that our board can do to provide expertise or help. Again, whether it's on closing a deal or on some of these initiatives that you're looking on, whether it's housing or talent or the hybrid component, commercial real estate, whatever we can do to help and foster this partnership, please let us know.
And I'd add one other thing. You talk about these capture teams. We are collaborating across the region now like never before. And Victor, really a prime mover and shaker in making that happen. I mean, the Amazon deal was a good place to get that going, but we are already doing a lot of that. So I could see we've got that groundwork built, bringing in from what you're doing and marrying them together. I think we can have a very, very strong collaboration, both from the bottom up and from the top down. So just know that we're really.
That is a key difference too, with obviously the sort of the age of this board, and with Victor specifically as the leader, is that regions used to see, if you ask probably in, I don't know, 10 years ago, who would Fairfax would consider the competition, they might say Montgomery County or Arlington, sadly. And I think those days, I wouldn't say they're never going to be completely vanished. Fairfax is always going to be fighting for deals, but that is pretty far in our past right now. Victor's done an amazing job to make sure that the counties are working together up in the north, and that we are presenting ourselves as a unified front. It certainly helped in Amazon. Probably was one of those times when we didn't want to be stepping on ourselves, that we wanted to show a unified front, and Victor really helped in doing that. So you know that you'll have our participation and partnership too, to not just think of Fairfax, but we're really thinking of Northern Virginia as a whole.
Well, I do want to also add that Victor has been a great thought partner, and I anticipate we're going to work together more closely. And in fact, the last couple of weeks, we've been exchanging emails, and I've said to him that I know I need to spend more time in Northern Virginia. I'm from Northern Virginia. I got married, raised 2 children here, started a variety of businesses here, been very involved in Northern Virginia, served on the board of the Airports Authority, our 2 wonderful, I don't know why they don't call it the Metropolitan Virginia, because both of our airports are in Virginia, not Washington. And we are talking about how to work together more closely, what businesses in our region need to know that they're being listened to more. How can we convene the right folks? And I'm also thinking too about entrepreneurship and innovation. How do we build better and more effective incubators and accelerators here in Northern Virginia?
Love it.
Well, thank you again, Secretary Merrick, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again real soon.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Excellent. That was excellent.
Hey,
Really
Kathy, as I have to leave in a moment, maybe we should
know.
take the vote.
Yes,
the
let
board
me-
votes now.
The first thing to approve are the minutes from the September 22 meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll provide the motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? All right, I'm going to ask, I call the question for Council Graff to do the roll call.
We'll start with Ms. Sabu,
Yay.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Partridge,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Quigley,
Aye.
and Chair Lang.
Yes.
The minutes are approved.
Thank you very much. James, we have two other really important topics. Do you have a couple minutes? or
Yep,
do you need-
sure,
okay.
yep.
So the first one, I'm going to turn this over to Vice President Hurwitz because we are going to be talking about the audit and we're going to be talking about the budget. So take it away, Vice President Hurwitz.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lang. I appreciate it, and I will try and make this quick because both of these items do require votes from the commission. So first, I'm going to talk to you about the financial audit report that was just completed last week of our fiscal year 2022 financial statements and activities. I talked to you about it last month, and so I'm not going to reiterate that. Last month, I showed you a draft of the document, but it's now final. And I was very pleased to say that it was a clean audit all around the financial statements and as well as the compliance audits that they tested, everything that is a legal obligation, policy, regulations, and financial, they do compliance audits. And so I'm really proud of our staff because it's the work that they do every day and the way that they all make sure that we are in compliance with all of our actions that leads to this clean outcome. You may have noticed the first 20 pages of the audit report were an executive summary presentation this year. This is the first year we've seen this from our auditor, and it was a PowerPoint presentation, which is a little bit easier to understand than those financial statements, although what they tell you really is all the things they have not noted. They have not noted any unusual circumstances, any unusual accounting practices, and they have not noted any areas in which we're not in compliance with our laws and regulations regarding transactions. So the financial statements, the last thing I want to say about them is that they are actually prepared by our county Department of Finance staff, the accountants over there, and they did a lot of work on this year because there was a new government standard regarding leases and how they're accounted for, and there was a lot of work required. So they served us so well this year. So that's my first item. I'll go on and tell you about the second before I turn it back to you, Chair Lang, to take the votes. Okay. Now that we have put fiscal year 22 to bed, we're in the midst of fiscal year 23, but the county is starting to prepare the fiscal year 24 budget. And that is the budget that the county executive will bring to the Board of Supervisors in February coming up. So it's now time for us to submit our budget request for fiscal year 24 to the county. And I'm coming to ask your approval on what we'd like to submit. And I will give you some highlights that was included in your package. We do not ask for any increase in the personnel budget. It is the county executive in conjunction with the Department of Management and Budget who calculates those increases, makes the request to the Board of Supervisors, and then ultimately they who approve it. So therefore that is looking flat right now, and we will just wait and see what they decide to do there. In terms of our operating budget, we also do not typically ask for increases. The last time we had a significant increase was when the talent program was funded by the board. However, in conversation with DMB, I have gotten agreement with them that it's very reasonable for us to propose a very slight increase to cover costs due to inflation. And so a total of just $40,000 has been added to this budget to cover increases in our contracts that relate to professional services, as well as software licenses, because the cost of all these go up every year. And in fact, the county is well aware of this issue. So I have added that into our budget. Otherwise, we use the same operating dollars. We have had to shift them around over time as costs have changed, but we feel very good with what we have there. So Chair Lang, I will give it back to you. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. And otherwise, you may
Yeah.
call the vote when you're ready.
We're going to actually have to vote on them separately. So let me start out by,
Correct.
are there any questions regarding the financial audit? And if not, I
I-
will, yes, go ahead. Yes.
Madam Chair, I just have one question, a very short one. I just wanted to know from the reporter here, are there any differences, material or otherwise, between the draft audit report that we received and the audit report that we will be voting on tonight?
Yes, Commissioner Johnson, that's an excellent question. And no, there are no material differences. There were some different calculations made on this restatement of our lease. And those were made in conjunction with the county finance and the accountants, but it was just a financial calculation for the statements, no material change there.
Okay, I'm satisfied, Madam Chair. Thank you.
very much. Another question or comment? Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the 2022 audit report and financial statements?
So moved, Commissioner Partridge.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you very much. And is there any further discussion? If not, I will call the question and council will call the roll.
Very good, Chair Lang. Ms. Sabu,
A.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Treasurer Partridge,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
aye.
Vice Chair Quigley,
Aye.
and Chair Lang.
Aye. Thank you very much. And now we need to talk about the FY24 proposed budget for the FCEDA as presented by Ms. Hurwitz, and of which you've seen. And so may I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Great.
It was presented that we're not asking for any increases beyond
Inflation.
the inflationary increases. Is there a reason for that? Because just looking at this from a different perspective, FCEDA and operationally has been extraordinarily efficient, has produced tremendous returns to the county. The question becomes, would a marginal increase in our budget produce even more for the county? What's the logic behind saying, oh, we haven't asked for an increase in the last X years, so therefore we're not going to ask for anything going forward? The way I see things, people who are effective are normally, and divisions who are effective are normally rewarded because you want that return. So I'd just like to understand the logic behind not asking for increases. Is it because we can't use the incremental increase, or yeah, what is the logic?
Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell, and I will answer your question and then ask if Victor has anything to add to what I have to say. The county still considers itself to be in a constrained fiscal situation, and they anticipate that this upcoming budget year for fiscal year 2024 will still be very tight. The priorities at the county level are to put money into personnel and staff as much as possible, because we did go several years without putting money there. And right now, the cost of living increases are going up. We don't know what the board will actually be able to do. So that is one reason. But the instructions from the county DMB are to continue to keep our budgets at their at a stable level. Now, to your question of whether or not we can use additional money. I have no doubt that we could provide a great return on any additional investment that the county would offer. Victor, is there anything that you would like to add?
Oh, Donna pretty much hit it. This is a time of shared sacrifice. I think that we have to be, cognizant of the challenges that the county is going through on scale for its 15,000 employees. We're a small part of that, but we are sacrificing along with them. They've asked for that, and we've cooperated with that. I believe when things turn, that we'll be able to ask for, just like when you ask for the money for the talent initiative, for example, it was the right time. Great revenues, strong performance overall, not just here, but in the overall economy. So those days will come again, and we'll ask. But right now, we're just trying to be sacrificing right along with the county.
I get that. Thanks for the explanation, but I'm just a firm believer that you feed cash generators, and cash generators are important because they cover other entities that are not cash generators. That's just the way the world works, and maybe those are the kinds of questions that we should be having quietly with the board, that this is not an investment that doesn't generate returns, quite the opposite. And this is the way that those budget deficits can be gapped within Fairfax County, is making incremental investment prudently in areas that generate cash. Just a thought.
Great thought. What I did see work so well with the talent initiative is we brought in such a strong case, and we had a cross-section of support, including from the CFO and other individuals, to help us move that through. So I think finding something where we want to put our teeth into it, perhaps not in this budget cycle, but the next budget cycle, would be one approach. With that said, may I have a motion to approve the budget as presented?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion? And I ask our council to do the roll call.
This is for approval of the budget.
That's right.
And Ms. Sabu,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Treasurer Partridge,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Lang.
Yes, aye.
And Vice Chair Quigley needed to leave. He indicated that had he been present, he would have
Voted on.
the motion. But in any event, we have a quorum, and the budget's approved.
Thank you very much. Okay, very good. So we'll next move into our next agenda item, which is my report, which will be brief. As you noticed, I sent out a document identifying one-on-ones with the different supervisors. This is a tradition of ours to meet one-on-one with those supervisors to get a sense of what's on their mind, and for us to be able to talk about some of the things that's on our mind and what we're doing, and obviously talk about the results we're bringing in. So Cheryl is going to be contacting you to see how she can align up schedules and make that happen over the next several months. That will be a yeoman's task to do, but it's really important that we spend this one-on-one time with the supervisors. The second thing is we've sent out a hold the date meeting notice for January 12th for the strategic planning session. We are working on the agenda, and we should have something over the next few weeks that we can share with you. And that concludes my report. And let me turn it over to our president and CEO.
Madam Chair, just a quick question.
Yes.
Do we anticipate that January 12th meeting being live, or we don't know?
We don't know. I'd love it to be in person.
Yeah.
But we don't know. So
Okay.
it's to be TBD. Thank you for
Thanks.
the question. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Madam.
President Hoskins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next slide, please. So this month has been as active month as always. Of course, we had our monthly NOVA collaborative meeting. Part of the discussion was about the quantum computing conferences coming up. There are a number of jurisdictions that are co-sponsoring with us. So we're going to be a group of jurisdictions from Northern Virginia plus the state will be sponsors of this event. We'll have opportunities to present our jurisdiction to customers and also having the opportunity to really get some exposure globally. Of course, we had our normal regional economic development organization meeting on the 23rd. These meetings have been back to back, but excellent in terms of their content. Next slide, please. And the NOVA group actually was invited by NAOP to form a panel and talk about the ways that we've been working together for the last 3 years. I mean, obviously, this is a current topic. Alex actually substituted for me, which I appreciated. I heard he did an excellent job. But it was great because we had a chance to present how we view the market and the changes in the market and the challenges in the market that are before us. The last item was the Dewberry Awards event. Actually, David Kelly took my role as one of the judges. They judged 25 projects. I think they presented 11 awards. And these projects were from around the world because Dewberry is a global engineering organization. And I just wanted to mention a couple of things that relate to the staff. We're having our return to office luncheon. I'm treating everyone to a lunch at Maggiano's on Thursday, which everyone has signed up for. So I'm glad everyone's going to be there. In addition to that, Supervisor Lusk and his chief of staff also are going to attend. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that we have a book. We do roughly a book once a quarter. And this one is Paradigms, the Business of Discovering the Future. And my team, I'm really excited for the team looking into this book because it provides different thinking on how to run organizations and how to think about the future. And with that, I will turn it over to, I believe it's Anna. Are you next, Anna?
Thank you, Victor, Chair Lang, and commissioners. I have another great month of reports for you guys on some national and international headlines on Fairfax County and Northern Virginia. If you can go to the next slide, Andrew. Thank you. So we had another record month of earned media value of over 40 million in September. And this is thanks to several business development activities as well as international travel. So go to the next slide, Andrew, please. And as you can see here, we had a couple of company announcements, Pangiam and Enabled Intelligence, headquarter expansions and establishments in Fairfax County, as well as a trip to Seoul, Korea by our international business investment team. Those articles on themselves and media coverage produced about 99% of the media value you saw on the previous slide. And I gotta tell you, our international business investment team did an incredible job in South Korea, delivering coverage in cybersecurity, fintech, and other tech publications and media platforms. So I'm expecting a lot coming out of that trip. And next slide, please. And as you can see from the Enabled Intelligence and Pangiam announcements, really what drives the headlines is our location being the choice location for top talent, as well as closeness to the customer, which being here, airports, authorities, as well as the federal government and other tech companies. So obviously it's all cyber and tech this past month. I did want to also mention that we did continue to get some amazing coverage on our career fair that was held last month. And I know Mike is going to talk more about that at the next meeting, but we got some really, really nice regional and local coverage driving the attendance at the in-person event that was held at the Army Museum last month. So I'm hoping we can hopefully deliver some numbers like this every month, maybe not, but we have already reached over the goal of entire last year's earned media value. We're about 80 million close to 80 million to date. Last year, we went up to 52 million for the entire year. So we are getting some good returns on our efforts and hope to continue next month. Back to you, Victor.
Overachiever. Done a great job, Anna. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Lang. Chair Lang?
Yes, thank you very much. So we are going to move into closed session. And so I will read the closed session motion. Is there a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A39 for the discussion or consideration of information subject to the exclusion in subdivision 3 of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3705.6 related to economic development? So may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So,
Okay, I'll take the second.
second.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? I will call the roll. I will have our council call the roll.
Yes, so the motion is to go into closed session.
Yes.
Ms. Sabu,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Treasurer Partridge,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Lang.
Aye. Excellent. Thank you.
We're permitted to go into closed session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am going to ask for a motion to reconvene into open session. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Johnson. Is there any discussion? Okay, so with that, I call the question. Council will call the roll.
This is to return to open session.
Yes.
Ms. Sabu,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell. Is Rocky still with us?
Yeah, yep, he is.
Aye.
Mr. Partridge,
I don't see him. Okay.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Lang.
Aye.
So we'll return to open session.
Thank you very much. And the council will call the roll that we have certified. So you're gonna, that we've certified what we've talked about
Yeah,
in the closed
Yeah,
session.
exactly. So this is to, and, just to give the commissioners a sense of how we do this, I review the proposed closed session materials before each meeting and confirm that that the topics are appropriate under Virginia law to be discussed in closed session. And so that's my advice to the commission this evening. And but one of the requirements under Virginia law is that we ask the commissioners to certify in open session that that only public business matters exempt from the open meeting requirements identified in the motion that we used to go into closed session were actually discussed in the closed session. So that gives you some context, and I'll call the roll on the certification. Ms. Sabu,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Treasurer Partridge. We may have lost Stephen. Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Lang.
Aye. Okay.
Certified the closed session appropriately.
Very good. And so I think by consent, we will adjourn our meeting. So thank you very much, everyone. And we will see you in November.
Yep.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you very much, everybody. Great
Good
night.
night.
Thank
Good
you
night.
so
Good night.
much.